Ukraine flags are still flying around the world, such as here in London. For 3 months, Russia's army has been kept at bay. Millions have been inspired by the courage of Ukrainians and the strength and endurance of their military. At the same time, they were horrified by the inhumane Russian crimes in the suburbs of Kiev and Mariupol.
Ukraine is a country very close to me. I've visited so many times in the past. Last year I worked there on my documentary Russia Returns to Ukraine, Oligarchs, Crime and Local Elites. In October I presented the investigation in London. Even then I reported about the intensification of a network of Russian agents in Ukraine. I pointed out that the Russians may try to seize or control Ukraine with the help of its agents. I believe this network included a wide cross-section, including representatives of the regional elites of the south and east of Ukraine, and criminals, and even the Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine. Unfortunately, some of my predictions came true. Russia did attack Ukraine, using its agents to the fullest. A striking example is the small village of Kachizhanka, north of Kiev. The Russian occupiers set up their base in the Church of the Archangel Michael of the Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine. They were invited by Alexander Bonar, a Moscow priest. In fact, politicians and experts have been talking about the dangers of the agency network under the guise of the Russian Church in Ukraine since the beginning of the war. Let me remind you that it was 2014 when the Russians annexed Crimea and invaded Donbass. However, both the former president, Petro Poroshenko, and current leader, Volodymyr Zelensky, seem to have ignored the warnings. Kiev turned a blind eye to the work of a Russian agency under the guise of pro-Russian politicians. Members of Yanukovych's Party of the Regions operated under the rebranded Opposition Platform for Life party. Such negligence probably helped lead to catastrophic consequences. This is Kherson. It was the only regional centre in Ukraine the Russians managed to capture in 3 full months after the full-scale invasion on February the 24th. Footage from rallies of Ukrainians in the days after occupation moved the whole world and became a real problem for Russian propagandists. Kherson is Ukraine. These words have probably been repeated many times by Ukrainian activist Katerina Ganzhuk. She tore the masks from pro-Russian politicians and crime in the region. In the summer of 2018, she was attacked and doused with acid. 3 agonizing months later, she died of her wounds. In February 22, the ones whom Katerina investigated took over the occupation's administration in Kherson and began to hunt for Ukrainian patriots in the city. Meet Volodymyr Saldo, a former mayor of Kherson, a former member of the Ukrainian parliament from the Party of Regions, and a member of the Kherson Regional Council. He cooperated with the Russians and is now the head of the occupiers' so-called Kherson Regional Military Civil Administration.
Unpunished evil just multiplies. The betrayal of Kherson politicians and pro-Russian activists effectively cut off the Ukrainian Azov region from Ukraine. As a result, Berdyansk and worst of all, Mariupol were blocked. Mariupol, this city became a symbol of both the courage of the Ukrainian military and the Russians' callous disregard for life or culture. Russia turned a once powerful industrial and cultural centre into ruins. The task of special services is to plan ahead, not to clear the ruins. Why did authorities interact with local kings before the war? Kings is how modern feudal lords in Ukraine are often referred to. For some reason, they decide that their region belongs to them, including industry and even the population. But there's an even bigger question. Why do Ukrainian officials still continue to interact with such kings, even after the start of the war, when everyone saw that this could lead to exactly the situation as happened in Kherson?
This is Dnipro, the industrial centre of Ukraine, an outpost in the fight against Russia. The main military hospital of Ukraine operates here, where Ukrainian servicemen wounded in the east are being treated. The city is at the intersection of transport, communications and connections between the east and west and north and south. For Russia, Dnipro is one of the priority goals. If it's not captured, there's no imaginary Novorossiya coming to life.
I was in Dnipro last summer. It's a beautiful city where sincere, friendly and brave people live. These days, Dnipro too is under fire. But Russia isn't only trying to destroy infrastructure, as its propagandists claim. Mainly they strive to instill fear into the hearts and souls of citizens. So far, it doesn't work. The courageous people of Dnipro were the first in 2014 to keep pro-Russian separatists at bay, and they buried the Russian Spring almost immediately. However, the city is restless again now, and not just because of those Russian rocket attacks. Some in the city say there's another element of instability and chaos here, and they say that element is the mayor of Dnipro, Boris Filatov.
On the 9th of May, many expected Putin to officially declare war on Ukraine and mobilize its population. But what you see here is not a strike by Russian missiles. This is allegedly a blow by Filatov's private army, the so-called Municipal Guard, an official militarized group within the Dnipro City Council.
Это было с 4:30 утра. Они приехали незаконно, приехали с техникой. Они закрыли ворота, поставили всех своих мальчиков двухметровых.
This is all that remains of the city's central market, Ozerka. Unrestrained brutality, without any court order or respect for existing agreements, without negotiating with the people. A symbolic act on May the 9th, like Putin's attack at 5 a.m. Why? Entrepreneurs ask if it's to show who the boss is.
Я когда в понедельник пришла, у меня было ощущение, что здесь упала бомба. Это я когда смотрела на вот эту разруху, это психологически даже очень тяжело. Мы живем в мирном городе, где нет ни обстрелов, не падают бомбы. И вдруг вот такое сделать тихо, но под утро, точно так же, как поступил Путин, он напал в 4 утра. Точно так же они сделали с Озеркой. Они на улице Пастера в 5 утра начали все это бомбить, рушить. У меня даже, вот ребята, честно, у меня нет слов.
Not only locals lost their jobs, but also immigrants from eastern Ukraine. There, their homes and jobs were stolen by Putin and his horde. And here, stolen by special forces of the mayor. People are understandably upset.
Тут на цих місцях працював підприємець з Маріуполя. Він з 3 дітьми зміг виїхати звідти, забрав якийсь товар, десь тут знайшов. Він прийшов до нас абсолютно безкоштовно, йому надали місце, бо ми розуміємо. І все те, що там не знищила російська армія, знищила міська рада. Получається так.
Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, the market has been at the heart of volunteerism. Evacuees found refuge here, and a humanitarian headquarters was established. Dozens of people come here for help every day.
Хочу выразить благодарство руководству рынка Озерка за предоставление данного помещения, так как оно позволяет в силу своих размеров разместить как товары продовольственного характера, так и лекарства, а также вещи.
Russians have a term, preventive cleansing, preparation for the occupation of a territory. This cowardly attack on entrepreneurs undermines the economic basis of the patriotic masses of the city. Is this attack an attempt to destroy an environment which could become the basis of a Ukrainian underground resistance in the event of Russian occupation? According to various sources, the organisers brazenly involved the military without the latter knowing what they were getting involved in.
Мені надали приказ воїнської частини, його підписав підполковник Збройних сил України, де було написано, що всі наші приміщення, які руйнуються, треба на користь армії. В зв'язку з тим, що ринок не охороняється, і в нас може бути тут ворожі формування.
The local entrepreneurs say that this is nonsense. The market is guarded, the police check the people, there is full control. The smallholders say they're not fooled and immediately understood who the beneficiary of the attack was.
Я думаю, що тут тільки приватні інтереси і замішані, тому що наскільки нам, як горожанам, нашого міста, жителям, нам звісно, що від нас по сусідству викуплена ділянка бившого трамвайно-тролейбусного депо, і що там буде відбуватися будівництво. То я думаю, що це ведуться взагалі підготовчі роботи по розчистці, будемо казати так, неугодних об'єктів, які б можна було б знести. І оце прикривається під ще і гідою наших Збройних сил України і п'ятнають честь їх мундирів.
За этим всем стоит мэр нашего города, Борис Филатов. У меня других мыслей нет, ребята.
I saw similar scenes last year when I visited Dnipro. Back then, I met with entrepreneurs who had small shops in the city centre. They were also destroyed by well-built guys in camouflage from the municipal guard. Back then, I spoke with journalists from a TV channel which opposes Mayor Filatov. Their colleague was filming when beaten by the same guys from the mayor's private army. I don't know if these people faced any repercussions, but as my colleagues from Dnipro assured me, they all escaped responsibility. Is it a stretch to link events here with what happened in Kherson? If a regional government is putting itself above the law, pursuing a policy independent of the state, it's a very dangerous sign, especially with the front line of a war just 100 kilometers from the city.
While working on the documentary Russia Returns to Ukraine in Dnipro last year, sources advised me to look closely not only at Filatov, but also at his team. Because only by delving deeper into the Dnipro context can we judge how the mayor's demonstrative patriotism actually correlates with his surroundings and actions.
So who is Boris Filatov? He's been mayor of Dnipro since 2015. In the past, he was a journalist, and now he's also a blogger. More than 300,000 people read his Facebook page. His posts often criticise his opponents, often in a rather rude way, occasionally resorting to profanity-laced tirades. The mayor of Dnipro does not hesitate to humiliate even European leaders, allies of Ukraine in the war with Russia. Here's an example of such a post by Filatov. On the politics of old Europe, in a nutshell, Macron, who calls the new Führer on the phone to no avail. Schultz, who lies all the time, in vain and without end. Poor leaders who used to lead great nations. Live with this now. I'm sorry, but I'm used to calling things by their names. In Dnipro, some consider Filatov a hothead. The mayor's closest friend, Gennady Korban, has a much colder mind. Local activists told me that he's a shadow mayor. Both used to be friends and team members of Ukrainian oligarch Igor Kolomoisky, who was placed on the US government's sanctions list for suspected corruption. Mikhailo Koshliak is in charge of the power vertical in Dnipro, it seems. He's an MP from the opposition Platform for Life, which was headed by Putin's friend Viktor Medvedchuk, Putin's godfather to Medvedchuk's daughter. Koshliak's allegedly curator of the already mentioned municipal guard, which is suspected of those attacks on journalists and activists and destruction of businessmen's property in Dnipro. This is the complicated context in one of the key cities of Ukraine. On the one hand, the mayor and his team claim to be on the side of Ukraine and against Putin. But attempts to undermine peace in the city, showing their strength both to residents and the President Zelensky, raise many questions. Filatov's close ties with representatives of the pro-Putin opposition Platform for Life and devotion to the Moscow Church, of which Filatov has long been a faithful parishioner, do not instill confidence in the future.
Saint Volodymyr is a symbol of Ukraine. Ukraine, with the support of its allies, is going to win this war, but it's paying a terribly high price for victory. While the armed forces of Ukraine are wearing down the second army in the world in the Donbass and the south, it is important to maintain an effective rear. Some believe Mr. Zelensky is a modern-day Saint Volodymyr, but it's important that the President and the special services don't overlook signals in the region.